Now it's time for Cleared to Play. Taking you inside the tent. Let's get you updated on the latest injuries in the Bray, and proud to partner with UCSF Health on this segment and bring in Associate Professor of Orthopedic Surgery, our good friend, Dr. Nirav Pandya. Doc, how are you? Great to have you. Thanks as always. We're thinking of you.
No, thank you. Things are getting better, so I appreciate everyone at the station reaching out, and sports are an escape, and I appreciate it listening to you guys. I'm a listener first, a guest second.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And you know, we won't belabor it too much, but just so our listeners know and what you're referring to, I know a little bit of a difficult time for you with some family-related stuff, but my goodness, we're thinking about you. We got your back, and we appreciate the work that you do here every week.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys. Tremendously appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Doc, what'd you see with Deebo Samuel? Because we look at last weekend, and to me, that looks like a compromised physical decoy out on the field. So what did you see, and what does it mean going forward?
Yeah, no, absolutely. He definitely looked compromised. I mean, the combination of rib and knee issues can definitely limit a player who is physical. I mean, Deebo basically makes his money being physical yards after the catch. And if you're worried about your ribs and you've got pain there, you're worried about your knee, you're going to be limited. That's why he only had 3 carries, didn't have any receptions. The good news is that the 49ers didn't disclose that there was any kind of major structural issue. They didn't say, oh, he's got a meniscus issue in the knee, a ligament issue, major with the ribs. So I do think that we should see his performance improve this upcoming week. But I think generally when you have these kind of quote-unquote banged-up injuries, it can take a couple weeks to kind of get back. I think the key is if we see him getting more receptions, getting good, running after contact this upcoming game, then I think we can be reassured this isn't going to linger for more than that.
A lot of fans are concerned about the overuse of Christian McCaffrey. Exactly what does that look like in terms of a sport like football that has an injury around every corner?
Yeah, I think if you look kind of retrospectively back at when he was injured in Carolina, I think, number one, you have to look at how many touches does he have during the season. And the years that led up to him kind of starting to get injured in Carolina, he had 326 touches one year, and I think the following year was 403. And that subsequent year was when he missed all that time. And currently right now he's on pace for 416. So I think it's something they need to watch carefully and make sure that, look, he's producing, he's playing well, but are there games or times, particularly when they have so many other people on offense that can produce, are we going to decrease his touches down, almost load manage Christian McCaffrey? So I think that's an important thing to understand. And also, remember, even though he is a gifted athlete, he's not a large for a running back / wide receiver. He's about 5'11", 215 pounds. So even if he's not having anything traumatic happen, just that wear and tear on his body is naturally going to build up for him. So I think if the 49ers manage how much he's touching, particularly at games that may not necessarily be important, or if someone else is getting hot, then I think that we don't have to worry. But if you get up to 350, 360, 370, that's when you worry about him coming out with an overuse injury at the tail end of the season.
Interesting stuff. Doc Pandya with us here on Willard and Dibs. One of the reasons he might have gotten so many touches last week was there was no Eli Mitchell, who's had knee injuries in the past and has another one. What do you know about that injury, and when do you think we'll see Eli again?
Yeah, I think the 49ers said he quote-unquote just banged his knee, so it sounds like a bruise or some sort of contusion. That's good news given all the issues that he's had with his MCL, his adductors, all those various issues. I think the key for him is, though, even though this wasn't a structural issue, his line is very thin for what his knee can tolerate. So even though it's just, quote-unquote, he banged his knee, because he's had compromised MCLs, because he's had compromised adductors, his knee's ability to handle a little bit of something that may be bothering it is much less than, say, another player. So I think the fact that he should be structurally hopefully better by this weekend and be able to contribute more, but we just have to keep watching him because these injuries start adding up and then his knees can't tolerate it. It's one thing if it's multiple parts of his body, but all these issues do tie into his knee, which is something that's a little bit troublesome to look at.
Speaking of injuries adding up, we turn to the NBA and Draymond Green, who's had knee issues, he's had a shoulder, he's had back problems, now he's dealing with an ankle. What do you make of the early prognosis of Draymond, and not a high ankle, just a garden variety ankle sprain?
Yeah, I think that's definitely reassuring. Anytime you hear of the high ankle sprain, you worry about it lingering in the season, and it's going to be several weeks, going into the week 4 of the season. The fact is that it's a low lateral ankle sprain. That's pretty much your typical ankle sprain. When people sprain their ankle, it's usually the ligaments on the outside. And, how quickly they're able to respond is really based on how does the pain get better, how does the swelling get better, when does that mobility come back? So you look at media day, those little clips, he looks like he's walking around pretty well. I think that's a good sign. And the fact they're saying it's going to be a couple weeks probably makes sense given that he's an older player. He's had these injuries, and there's no reason to rush and have this linger into the season. So I'm not overly concerned. It looks like they're going to be playing it safe. And I think he'll be fine coming into the season.
Yeah, real quick on that, though, Doc. Being that he's not limping, being that there's no boot, and being that opening night is still 3 weeks away, I feel like everybody's sort of, at least in theory, ruled out opening night right away, which seems kind of odd to me. What are your thoughts specifically about Draymond and opening night?
I think it's absolutely possible he could do that. I mean, if he came up there, was limping, using crutches, I mean, the fact that he's walking pretty normally, even though it's a short clip, is a very positive sign. So it's absolutely within the realm of possibility for him 3 weeks from now to make it back on that court. And the fact that he's dealt with these issues before, they have Rick Celebrini, they have the best staff out there. So absolutely, if he's suiting up there and in that starting lineup week 1 and we're having controversy about who's starting, that's absolutely in line with what you could have with low lateral ankle sprain.
Oh, we need that controversy, Doc. We thrive on it. So we need Draymond to be cleared so we can talk about all that and more. Sunday Night Football, Dallas has got Micah Parsons with a knee and an ankle. Based on his position, how concerned should Cowboy fans be, a.k.a. Guru, about Micah Parsons?
I think you're really concerned this year with the way the Cowboys may play as the season goes on. But I think, when you look at kind of what happened with these issues, it doesn't seem super concerned. I think their coach was saying, look, it shouldn't be an issue, leading up to the game. And it didn't look that traumatic. So I do think at his position, it may mean something where he may not necessarily be as effective, but I don't see him necessarily being out or not present for a whole bunch of plays. So it's always hard, even though he may not be effective, the fact that he's out there may mean that the 49ers have to, plan and place additional players on that side. But once again, it didn't seem like a major issue. I think he did try to come back in and play it a little bit. So once again, I think he'll be good to go and shouldn't impact his performance too much.
Doc, thanks so much for coming on as always, and go over to YouTube. A lot of our listeners are wishing you all the best. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. Yep.
Okay, there it is. Doc Pandya. The proceeding was sponsored by UCSF Health.